in your market. Become more and more crowded. It's time to break it open and really stand out. It's here.
Mainland 98.3 FM, the sound of Lagos.
Another beautiful Thursday morning in the month of July. Good morning to you. Welcome to Mainland 98.3 FM, the sound of Lagos. We're happy to have you. We're happy to be here. We're looking forward to having many conversations with you. We're looking forward to providing you with information and, of course, getting feedback from you regarding the discussions that we have on radio. This is Mainland 98.3 FM, the sound of Lagos. My name is Sage Babalola, and you are listening to Trends in the Papers. Please be aware that the conversation does not end here on radio, as we are on social media, very active I might add, so you can definitely interact with us via our social media handles or platforms, Facebook, YouTube, where we stream all of our shows live, so you can participate, and even if you miss the programs, you can go back and have a rewatch of the programs as it will be uploaded on those streaming platforms. You can also follow us on social media, Twitter at Mainland FM. Also, you can leave your contributions, your questions, or what have you on those platforms as well. But let's focus on the live program that is happening this very moment. As earlier introduced, you are listening to Trends in the Papers. Just like the name indicates, we're having a conversation about trending stories that are being reported across all of our dailies. Now, I will present you the stories, but analysis will be added for in-depth conversation. And to help with that particular effort is Fuhad, who's joining us via the phone lines. Fuhad, good morning to you. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, how are you doing?
Oh, thank you so much for being here. So we have our papers with us: the Punch newspaper, Guardian, Nation, and finally Vanguard Newspaper. Starting with the Punch newspaper this morning, we have our major headline: NLC protests Tinubu's 500 billion naira subsidy palliative, demands 300% pay rise. The writers to the story: Reps sits on 500 billion naira subsidy relief request today. Federal government labor for fresh negotiations. The other rider: 500 billion naira not enough for 125 poor Nigerians affected by deregulation, says NLC and TUC. Now, for details on this story, the Nigeria Labour Congress and the Trade Union Congress have thumbed down on the 500 billion palliative proposed by President Bola Tinubu, stating that it is grossly inadequate to assuage the hardship confronting workers sequel to the fuel subsidy removal. They are also demanding a 300% salary increase to enable workers to cope with the challenges imposed by the deteriorating economic situation that came with the controversial removal of fuel subsidy. Now, there's been quite a number of reactions. We have NASIMA and LCCI saying that that's the Association of Chambers of Commerce, Industry, Mines and Agriculture. And the head, Olushola Obadimu, he welcomed the idea of palliative for the poor, but questioned how the 500 billion for the palliative measures would be spent. So, Fuhad, the president has written to the House asking that 500 billion naira be approved for palliatives. Now, some welcome the idea, some are not exactly fans of the idea, but they need clarity. They're asking that, okay, maybe you don't entirely kick against your request for 500 billion, but how exactly would it be spent as palliative? How would you use this money to cushion the effect of deregulation and subsidy removal? And this also begs the question, you know that initial plans have been made. I mean, there was a $800 million loan that was collected by the previous administration for the same purpose. So what does that leave us? If we have $800 million loan that had been earlier secured by the previous administration for palliative, why exactly is there a need for a 500 billion naira loan for the same purpose?
Well, I don't even know where to start, but I'll find my way through all of it. So, God help me this morning. Well, we have about have three figures you are dealing with here, say. For sake of proper conversation, let's just start this way.
Yeah.
The immediate past administration has secured a World Bank loan of $800 million. There's a lot of question as to whether the amount that money is in our account.
Yes.
Whether we received it or not, so we are not even sure if the money is with us already. And the purpose of that particular loan has been, explained. That it was going to be about 5,000 naira cash handout to vulnerable Nigerians. The project was about 10,000 households, targeting about 50 million Nigerians. That was the idea. I think recently there was also an announcement of a $500 million secured by this government, or maybe applied for the past government, but of course the announcement also came, and it was supposed to be used for something around women empowerment and all of that.
Yes.
Now we have the president writing to the House, seeking for an approval to have 500 billion naira as subsidy palliative. And the plan is clear, because even from the words of the president, while receiving a group of former governors who called themselves the class of 1999. So, incidentally, the current president is also from that class. He was governor in 1999, one of the youngest at that time, youngest of them all. It was family to Hakeem or maybe Donald Duke. You had a lot of very young governors in 1999. So they all came. Some of them are dead now. I think about 10 or 11 or 12 of them are late now with that class of 1999. So I think it was a solidarity visit. And so he was there. He said that look, he was doing something about this hardship caused by subsidy removal, and that look, there's a plan to secure up to 500 billion naira to be shared. He said he's doing the calculation so that the money will not get into wrong hands. So the plan is to share money to Nigerians as a form of palliative. And again, it goes to what I've been saying, that there's nothing to announce. And when I kept saying that Nigerians should take care of themselves, maybe a lot of people don't know where I'm coming from. I don't know why I decided to take that position as an issue. Because again, if the government was very fast about removing subsidy, but kept dragging its foot to announce measures to cushion the effect of subsidy removal, now he should tell you that there's no plan on ground. And from the statement of the president yesterday, there were a lot of loose ends, a lot of loose points to show that, look, what the government is now doing is to begin to think of what to do. I will keep saying again that, look, how do you announce a policy without thinking it through? If you have the issue, it has been said, even before now, even before the government, the president became the president, that look, the removal of something was going to be untold action on ordinary Nigeria. But we are getting to a point where it must be done. Like in the west of Sandra, it was avoidable, but it has become inevitable. But I would have thought that, look, before you jump into this kind of waters, this murky waters of subsidy removal, you would have had a plan. You must have a plan. Think it through. Okay, if I remove subsidy, this is what will happen. This is what I'm going to do. And we're talking about practical things that are doable. The reality again is this. What structure do we have on ground now? Not one. To identify Nigerians that are vulnerable. How do we define vulnerable Nigerians now? And then this cash handout. How do you want to handle it? We have an experience with cash handout in the past.
Yes.
See, this is not the first time we do cash handout. What ended it? So again, what is going to happen is that, look, the political class will position themselves now. They've had the announcement. There's a 500 billion naira coming. So what they do is to position themselves. And at the end of the day, what you see is that the government will scratch the surface. The suffering of ordinary Nigerians will continue. Nothing will change. And so we are back to the reality of subsidy removal without any meaningful plan from the government. The reality is that the political class will not suffer. They are not affected by this. It's clear. The political journey is going on now. Everybody is visiting the president, positioning themselves. There's a lot of pursuits to get appointments. So the political class will sort themselves out. But in the midst of all that, problems, the ordinary people will continue to suffer. So again, the government has given us a hint as to the plans they have. as a form of palliative. I don't like anything called palliative anyway because we have an experience with palliative in the past. We are looking for realistic things to cushion the effect. We know that the effect cannot be completely removed. But again, like I've always said, the easiest way to cushion the effect of subsidy removal would have been to look at the transportation sector, the public transportation sector. But unfortunately, we have a disorganized, short public transport system in the country. And so it becomes a problem again. Like I've always said again, subsidy is the problem. The implementation of subsidy in Nigeria is the problem. So the reality of Nigerians, again, like I've always said, please take care of yourself.
Fuhad, thank you very much for your analysis. Page 2 of the Punch newspaper, you would find more information on that particular story. Moving forward, still in the Punch, we have here boards, Obi kicks as Tinubu offers opposition governors slots. That is the headline. Now to the story, the Labour Party and its standard bearer in the last presidential election, Peter Obi, have kicked against the offer of board slots to state governors, including those elected on the platform of the opposition People's Democratic Party and Labour Party by President Bola Tinubu. Kwara State Governor and Chairman of the Nigeria Governors Forum, Abdulrahman Abdulrazak, disclosed at a meeting of the forum in Abuja on Tuesday night that the President asked the governors to nominate competent persons to serve in the boards and parastatals of federal government agencies which were dissolved last month. I believe about 200 dissolved boards were among the 209 that were constituted by former President Muhammadu Buhari in December of 2017, and these boards were dissolved. I don't know if you remember, and we had about 2,000 positions that were left to be filled. So so Abdulrahman Abdulrazak is saying that the President, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, has asked that these governors nominate so that they can serve on those platforms that were dissolved. Maybe they will be reconstituted. We really don't know about that. But there's been a reaction to this particular statement by Peter Obi. Peter Obi, let me read what was said verbatim so that we don't get the wrong information out there. Now, commenting on Tinubu's offer of board slots to the governors across party lines, the Labour Party described it as a gimmick to lure the opposition government and chieftains into the ruling party. The chief spokesman for the Obidati Campaign Council, Eunice Atanko, stated that such a subtle move will not change the fact that Tinubu's presidency is an illegitimate government. He said APC is doing everything in their crooked book to ensure they legitimize this government, which we have resisted vehemently. We will only do what is rightfully ours when the court makes the decision and pronouncement. Now, the PDP has said it cannot comment until the governors take a position on the particular offer. Fuhad, what do you think about the position of the Labour Party? They seem to think that this offer by the ruling party, by the president, is a way to quote and unquote seduce governors from the opposition party. Would you say it's seduction of a kind, or do you think that maybe this is a method to, I don't know, ensure solidarity regardless of the fact that they're from different parties?
Well, you know what, Sage? I think we need to be very clear about this. I think we don't really have political parties, that are bounded together by any serious ideology. So again, for this particular conversation, saying Labour Party or PDP would just mean that we are trying to gloss over the rape issue. Look, I think Mr. Peter Obi needs to understand that he's on his own. These governments are also on their own. I think at this level, everybody is just on their own now. It's about individual interest. We saw that play out at the National Assembly. There was no Labour Party ideology guiding the way the National Assembly members voted. It didn't happen also at the level of the PDP. It was about individual interest, and we saw it then the way those assembly members voted. So on this same issue, I think the governors will jump at this offer from the president, and I think everybody is just positioning again to see what they can get from this government. So whatever Mr. Peter Obi is saying, I think it's just a personal opinion which is entitled to, and as a position figure. But whether that will be enough to influence the decision of the governors to stay away from taking such appointments, I doubt it. Or I doubt it seriously. Because again, like I said, one would have thought that, look, the best way for the opposition to make a statement to the ruling party would have been the National Assembly politics that we saw when it came to choosing precise presiding officer. But we saw that everybody was just there for himself. There was no really united front, like a guiding ideology from the political party. And so, again, I've said it, I keep repeating it, that this is the most disorganized opposition that we have ever seen in this of democracy in Nigeria. And it's unfortunate that, we have this so much disorganized opposition when we have a president that understands politics very well. He's going to use everything to stifle the opposition. In Lagos, we say there's no real opposition in Lagos. And that is a result of the political mercurial nature of the president, guiding the politics of Lagos. And we already seen that pattern at the national level, unfortunately. So again, Mr. Peter Obi has a right to his own opinion that no governor should stay away from those appointments and all the dates and all. The reality is that these governors even want to become friends with the presidency. A lot of them will be looking for support. Some of them will be looking for all manner of things a favor from the presidency. So I'm sure they are going to jump at it. Some of them also need this position to sort out politicians who work for them. It's all about political patronage and positioning. And then on the issue of legitimacy, again, the reality is the same. If anybody is asked to be who is the president of Nigeria, it is still President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Until the court says otherwise, he is still the legitimate president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Again, these cases are in court. But as it is today, he is being sworn in, he is the legitimate president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria until the court declares otherwise.
Right, thank you very much. Page 9 of the Punch newspaper if you want details. We're listening to trends in the papers on Mainland 98.3 FM, the sound of Lagos. Please be reminded that we are streaming live on Facebook and YouTube at Mainland 98.3 FM. My name is Sage Babalola and I've been speaking to Fuhad Saheed on the reports and that we see here on the front page of the Punch newspaper. We're still reviewing Punch and we're moving to the next headline. We have here, Army Chief orders IPOB raid, rubbishes amnesty for bandits. That's the headline. So the story was actually separated. The headlines were together, but they separated the story. The first one being Army Chief orders raid on IPOB hideouts. They wrote a story on that. So let's do this one after the other. Now, the Chief of Army Staff, Major General Taoreed Lagbaja, has ordered troops to seize control of areas where the indigenous people of Biafra enforce their sit-at-home order throughout the southeast states. The order came after Finland-based pro-Biafra agitator Simon Epa announced that there would be a 2-week sit-at-home in the southeast region from July 31st. According to him, the order was to demand the immediate and unconditional release of detained IPOB leader. So Taoreed Lagbaja has said that the troops of the 82 Division has been given order to work with other security agencies to ensure citizens go out about their business freely. So let's talk about this first of all. Fuhad, the fact that somebody who's not even in Nigeria is able to give directives like this one, and then we see certain individuals who have obviously abused the entire, should I say, ideology of the Biafra movement, punishing people for going about their businesses. We've had economists talk about the economic disadvantage that this sit-at-home has had. That's just for Mondays, and now somebody's calling for a 2-week sit-at-home. First things first, Fuhad, what objective, what aim do they think, or what outcome does Simon Epa really think this forced 2-week sit-at-home is going to have? And also, the raid on the IPOB hideouts, what effects do you see this is going to have? Are we going to see a pushback of some kind, or do you think they might be able to quell the violence that have continued to ravage the southeast?
Well, Simon Epa is an anarchist. And for anarchists, there's really no reason for them to take decisions or do anything. They just want to cause destruction in the lives of the people. So as an anarchist, sometimes, they are just disrupting. They are devilish in their thinking, and so they don't even have any reason to take a position to disturb the lives of the people. So it is very clear. His own case is very clear. I'm hoping that the Nigerian government will be very decisive about him. He's in Finland hiding away, causing all of these chaos back home. But I know that the government can always deal with him. There are channels, there are ways to deal with him, and I'm sure that the government will continue to look at that possibility. Now, army staff and carried like that. It's a good one that the army was stepping to be. Because I think the police is overwhelmed. It would be nice to see the police working with the army to secure the people. Because again, on this particular issue, I've had to speak with a number of people in the South Sea. Some of our friends who are journalists practicing in the South Sea. And what they keep telling me is that, look, Fuhad, you are in the South, you may assume a lot of things, but the reality is that, look, for these guys to be going out there to want to enforce this shit at home is not a popular thing with the people of the South Sea. That just the reality is just that, look, they are not even sure that the situation
Fuhad, we can barely hear you.
Okay. Is it better now?
Yes, please go on.
So some of my friends who are journalists in the Southeast have said that, look, the fact that these guys go out there to forcefully enforce this shit at home has shown that it's not really a popular thing with the people of the Southeast. And that the only thing is that they are afraid to go out because they are not sure that the security architecture there or the political class will be able to secure them and guarantee their safety. So it's nice that the army is stepping in. I like the position of Saheed who is saying that, look, they are not going to entertain any form of intimidation or harassment of people who want to go out on Mondays or any other day to go about their normal activity. So it's a nice one, but again, I need to say this. The army and the police and all security operatives cannot work in isolation. They still need to work with the local community. Local intelligence helps with security. And so that's why I keep saying that, look, most of these IPOC guys live in community. They live amongst the people. They have houses, they have camps, if you understand what I'm saying. And that's why it is important that community leaders also need to step up and join hands with the army, the police, to give intelligence, to call these people out.
Fuhad.
It would help. Yes, I'm with you.
Yes. The question, I asked the question, this announcement that is being made, do you foresee a pushback of some kind from this IPOB members, those who are wreaking havoc, now that it's been announced that we're going to raid all their hideouts? And asking the questions, do you foresee a pushback where they become maybe even more aggressive, or do you think that this will cause them to, run back and retreat for a little bit at least?
I'm sure if the army goes after them, they'll go into extinction. Who are they? What are they exactly? They don't have the might of our military. They're not even close to it. It's just the willpower. The willpower for the political class in that area, the community, the traditional rulers, to really welcome the army, work with them, share intelligence, and also stand their ground. Have local vigilantes, you have hunters, you have market leaders. There's a way you work together, synergize and send the message to these guys that, look, enough is enough, this must stop. All form of silence, solidarity, everybody that encourages them. And that's why I'm saying that the army can do their own part, but the people must also be ready to work and assist the army to ensure that peace returns to the South.
All right. Well, moving away from this IPOB story, there's also the second part of this conversation, where also the Chief of Army Staff, Major General Saheed has kicked against the amnesty programs for bandits and terrorists in the country. The Army Chief said amnesty programs instituted in many states had failed to achieve their purpose. According to him, rather than repent, beneficiaries of such programs see it as an avenue to regroup and attack innocent citizens. He spoke when Zamfara State Governor Dauda Lawal paid him a courtesy visit in Abuja on Wednesday. He said, and I'm quoting now, "I want to appeal to Your Excellency that as we come up with a strategy to address the issue, the state government should be disposed to the implementation of the measures that we would recommend, so that together we will address the activities of this criminal element. We also have the issue of the amnesty program that has been instituted, which has failed not only in the north, but but also in many other states. The quote is longer, but I'll end the quote there because of our time. Yeah, so he has spoken about the amnesty program as well. He's joined the list of stakeholders that have continued to speak about how the amnesty program has been disadvantageous to the fight, against insecurity. He believes that this amnesty program has not achieved any of the intended purpose, and because of that, it should be scrapped, and these bandits should be chased down, and they should be attacked and wiped out. So, also, I'm going to ask you what you think about this proposition of the cancellation of the amnesty program. What influence or what implication do you think it will have in the fight against insecurity?
Sid, you have always questioned this amnesty program of the past administration, whether at the federal level or even at the state level. The reality is that, Sid, you cannot reform the devil. The devil is not reformable. You can't reform the devil. The devil is the devil. Criminals are criminals, and they should be made to face the law. And so we kept asking the questions about this idea of amnesty and all of that. And the reality, and that's what General Lagbaja is saying, that look, a lot of times the army wants to go after these people and give them the maximum punishment. But you have governors saying, we're forgiving them. I think it was only Zamfara that a particular bandit leader was given a chief sacrifice by a community.
Yeah, it was so banned.
And the guy came out. I was so banned as a chief. In the same Zamfara. And so, most of these bandits or so-called Boko Haram insurgents that now have this so-called what they call amnesty and what have you, know what they do? They move into the community and become a sleeper cell, giving those in the bush with information. Because how do you reform somebody who has gone into that kind of zone, and then also you are forgiving them and they go back into the society, and what do? They become sleeper cells. They begin to give information to the die-hard criminals in the bush. And that is why, again, if you remember, I said that it is not suspicious that the new governor in Zamfara made a statement immediately he assumed power as governor of the state that look, it is fight to finish for bandits in my state. He has given the military to go ahead, to go after them, kill them, wipe them out. Making a statement in less than 1 week. A former governor in that same state that never issued a statement when bandits were showing them shaggy, killing people, stealing their properties, abducting them, never made any statement. He got on record that he condemned it or made a statement against them. Immediately the governor made a statement, he ran straight to Aso Rock to meet with the president and started advocating for amnesty and negotiation with bandits. You know the irony of what the former governor of Zamfara did? That was Governor Yerima. This was the same governor that brought Sharia to that state. Sharia is an Islamic law that deals with things like this. What does Sharia say about stealing? What does Sharia say about killing other people? What does Sharia say about stealing what does not belong to you?
Punishment is stringent. Yes, the punishments are very stringent.
So if a governor that is teaching Sharia is now the one calling for pardon for people who have killed people, stolen their property, kidnapped them, raped women, shouldn't we suspect people like that? And that's what General Lagbaja is saying. Now look, you governors should tell us whether you are really ready for the army to go after them.
You have 1 minute. Apologies, we're going to get Fuhad back on the line, but we're still reviewing papers. Trending the Papers is the show. We're talking about the position of the Chief of Army Staff, talking about the need to probably reconsider on the amnesty program, because if we're really serious about eradicating bandits, then this particular concept might be counterproductive. Fuhad, are you here?
Yes, I'm with you. I'm with you.
Please conclude your analysis.
So basically what I'm saying is that I like the position of the army. I like the body language of the new Chief of Army Staff. I like the position of the current governor of Zamfara State. And look, these guys, we need to go after them and exterminate them. They've done too much havoc to ordinary Nigerians. Farmers cannot go to their farms. And so everybody calling for amnesty at this time is an enemy of the country. And they should be treated as such. whether it is in the southeast, in the south, in the southwest, in the north central, in the northwest, all of these kidnappers, bandits, criminals should be met with maximum punishment. Enough is enough.
Page 14 and 15 of the Punch newspaper is where you'll find both stories. It's one singular headline, but each story was presented differently, so you can go there if you really, really want to read and understand what is being said. We're still reviewing the Punch newspaper, but we're moving very quickly to another headline. We have here, Nigeria redeems $500 million bond despite revenue challenges. Maybe this might be a little bit of a good news, we'll find out. But let's see the body of the... Why? Fuhad, why? I was trying to be light at the end of the panel. Why? Of the lights. The story says that Nigeria has redeemed a $500 million Euro bond, which matured on July 12, 2023, according to the Debt Management Office. The statement reads, Nigeria reaffirms its commitment to meeting its debt service obligations as it redeems a $500 million Euro bond on its due date on July 12, 2023. To be honest, there's no need to even go further with the story. Fuhad has already said everything there is to say. Fuhad, I'm not going to use it again. Well, that's why I was saying that maybe this is a tad bit of a good news. At least we've made an attempt to pay. We've paid part of our debt.
These debts have timelines.
Right.
And there are serious consequences to not paying at the right time.
So we have 1 minute. Okay, we're going to have to reconnect with Fuhad again. Deserves apologies for that interruption. But the headline, Nigeria redeems $500 million bond despite revenue challenges. So just like Fuhad was saying before that interruption, we have been able to successfully pay $500 million of Euro bond. It's a loan. Bonds are basically loan, yeah. The issuer gives you a loan and you're expected to pay at a particular date. You also would pay interest. The interest might be slightly subsidized, but you pay interest usually twice a year or what have you, but you have to pay on the due date, and we have been able to successfully pay on the due date. I believe the due date was July 12, so we've made that payment, and I'm asking the questions, is that something of a good news or not? Fuhad, are you back? Hello?
I'm with you.
Alright, so Fuhad, yes, that's how we are paying our busy. No,
we are paid at debt. Our creditors will do.
Alright then, let's just move to other stories that we have here. Still reviewing the Punch newspapers, we have another headline here. Reps probe contract fraud, revenue leakages in Nimasa. I'll be reading to you the body of that particular story as we try to reconnect with Fuhad again. So for Punch newspaper, still on page 14, we have this particular headline here. Reps probe contract fraud, revenue leakages in Namasa. Now, the House of Representatives have resolved to constitute an ad hoc committee to investigate alleged fictitious contract awards, gross mismanagement of billions of naira, and lopsided payments from the Nigeria Maritime Administration and Safety Agency. Now, the ad hoc committee was given 3 months to conclude the probe and report back to the House for further legislative actions. Now, this particular motion was moved by Honorable Kinsley Chinda, Honorable Victor Ubuzo, Honorable Cyril Hart, Honorable Manu Soro, amongst others. Honorable Chinda says, and I quote, "There have been several allegations of questionable, inflated, and fictitious contract awards, particularly for non-operational speedboat, security surveillance contracts, and deep blue water contract, revenue leakages, and the award of contracts to crews of the Director General and other top management staff of the agency." He also raised some concerns. He raised the concern about the alleged unbarrenness of debt owed to the country by shipping firms with the alleged consent or connivance of NAMASA. So, the conversation is about NAMASA. We're talking about the Nigeria Maritime Administration and Safety Agency. There has been allegations leveled against them, the fact that they are quite complicit in misappropriation of funds, the multiplicity of projects or projects that have been duplicated, monies are being collected. They've also been accused of conniving with certain individuals to pay, should I say, under remittance of funds. They don't pay the amount that is required of them to remit to the federal coffers. And so a committee has been constituted, and we've been given, I believe, 3 months to investigate the amount of money that has been collected, the projects that have been executed so far. Did they successfully execute these projects? And also, have they been remitting the amount that is expected of them? Alright, so that is that particular story. We're still trying to connect back with Fuhad so that we can get his analysis on that particular story. But the headline, Reps probe contract fraud, revenue leakages in Massa. We're still going to continue to get through the stories. Not to worry, when we get Fuhad back on the line, we can double back to those stories and get his perspective on them. Alright then, we have another one here. We're going now to Ondo States. Let's talk some Ondo politics. House to investigate 14-year power outage in Ondo communities. House to investigate 14-year power outage in Ondo communities. So we're talking about electricity in Ondo State, and in a way this has something to do with politics and the state of governance in that particular state. Unfortunately, the page and the story we do not see, it doesn't correlate. Okay, finally found it. Now, the House of Representatives has resolved to investigate an alleged 14-year power outage in some communities in Ondo State under the jurisdiction of the Benin Electricity Distribution Company. Now, the resolution followed the adoption of a motion by Ondo APC lawmaker Odimayo John at plenary on Wednesday. John alleged that communities in the Irele local government areas of the state, including Ode-Irele, Ode-Ajaja, Akotogo, Iyesha, Ijusu, Oni, Atuashe, and Udogu had been without electricity supply for the past 14 years. He said also affected were the Igbotako, Ilitutu, Ikoya, Ayeka, among others. Now, according to him, all major industries situated in the area have relocated, while others like Uluwa Glass Industry, Ekitipupa Oil Palm Mill, NTA Channel 26, and others have also relocated because of this power outage. I believe we have Fuhad back on the line. Fuhad, hello.
Yes, I'm with you.
Yes, all right. Let's double back to the one of the headlines that I spoke about whilst we're trying to get you, so we don't just skip over that story. We're talking about reps probing contract fraud and revenue leakages in Massa. I don't know if you caught that particular story when I read it out.
Yeah. Of course, there's a lot to probe. I think the reps have started another round of probing spree. I think recently they announced that the House of Reps are going to be probing subsidy payment. Now in Massa, I'm sure that we are going to see more announcements of probes for other agencies, special ministries, contracts, and all of that. Again, I'm not so excited about this probe because we have too many probes out there without any prosecution or anybody being brought to book. So we are going to see more announcements. I'm sure the reps will be talking about probing again what happened in the aviation sector with Nigeria Air and all of that. I'm sure we're also going to get probes as to awards of contracts with the Ministry of Works. We might also be getting announcements of probes in the power sector. So the number of probes are going to come up, more probes are going to come up, but the reality is to what end are these probes coming up? What will become the end of all of these probes? If we probe, recommendations are made, indictments are made, and then it's not followed up with a prosecution or punishment of any kind, then what is the essence of all of the probe? So it is what it is. We are going to get more announcements of probe.
Right. Well, what is the outcome of the probe? A very important question indeed. Page 14 of the Punch newspaper, you find that story. So I was already talking about House investigating the 14-year power outage in Ondo communities. I already gave a list of some of the communities that have allegedly been without electricity for 14 years, and how certain organizations, certain industries that were located within those communities have had to relocate, obviously causing an increase in unemployment. And so a committee has been formed, and they've been given 8 weeks to investigate so that they can move on with further legislative action. Fuhad, it beats me to even begin to imagine communities, not one, not even 5, more than 10 communities here have been without electricity for for 14 years. I can only begin to imagine the economic rupture that would have occurred in those communities, the poverty, the many consequences of the situation. And 14 years after, a committee is now being constituted to investigate the matter.
We know the issue of connecting communities to the national grid.
Right.
We should ensure that these communities get access to the national grid in terms of providing transformers, electric cables, and all of that. Again, this is supposed to even be the job of the distribution companies in that area, who ordinarily are supposed to invest their money to ensure that these communities are power distributed to them so that they can make money. But again, can we expect that from distribution companies who can't even service those that are connected to the national grid? If you understand what I'm saying, I think that maybe some of these communities are not easily accessible. You have a lot of riverine communities in those states.
Yeah.
So I assume that most of we don't have the details of these communities really, but again, it's supposed to be the priority of the governors working with some of these distribution companies. Or the tales of rules coming from different companies are not even made to request them to do some of these things.
Right.
The simple things they have not been able to do, so we didn't do the big thing. So for 14 years, it's a very bad one. And then industries are leaving and all of that.
Yeah.
And to think that when those things an oil producing state, I said you may want to ask yourself, so what would this community now say as in their benefit, being a part of an oil producing state, if they are not connected to the national grid, or have not been able to have access to power for 14 years, as an oil producing community?
Alright, well, you can get more information on page 8 of the Punch newspaper. Another headline here, we have to move real quick. No Nigerian child should lack education. Malala tells the federal government basically more advocacy for education, especially for the girl child. And the Vice President Kashim Shettima has reiterated the commitment of this administration to make sure education is affordable and readily available for those who would want to be educated. And there's another report on the front page of The Guardian that would make you question this commitment, but let's pay attention to the Punch.
The Guardian has been doing a wonderful job.
Right. So let's just get through this last headline here so we can see that report very quickly. Now we have here, after Obasanjo's revelation, Atiku cannot label me corrupt, says Autumn. Immediate past governor of Benue State Samuel Autumn says former Vice President Atiku Abubakar lacks the moral grounds to accuse him of corruption after what former President Olusegun Obasanjo had written about him. So basically, Autumn is referring to the whole
let Autumn talk for him. She speak about himself. He should leave whatever Obasanjo. He should leave what Obasanjo has said about Atiku. We already know that. And some of the things Obasanjo said about Atiku again can be questioned. Again, when things are said out of bad belly, you know. But on the issue of Autumn should defend himself and not deflect the issue by running to cover whatever he has done with what Obasanjo said about Atiku or what Atiku did say about Obasanjo. The reality is Autumn has a lot of questions to answer.
A lot of questions indeed.
A lot of questions. The new governor, Reverend Father Leah, just recovered some vehicles from what is called an automobile shop. And one wonder, I think the governor was a mechanic or was selling cars. SUVs, about 30 something of them, brand new, kept some of them covered in dust. In a state that I think we're saying it. I want anybody from Benue State who visits that state regularly to please call us and tell us whether in 8 years they know at any time that this particular former governor commissioned a single project. That's Samuel Autumn. Whether in 8 years of his reign as governor of that state, he commissioned even just 2 kilometer roads in that state, or even a public toilet.
Fuhad, please let's move on because of our time. Page 15 on the Punch newspaper, if you want to go and read Samuel Autumn's position or his perspective on Atiku, that's
I think the entity should be doing his work on that.
Right. Still trying to the papers on mainland 98.3 FM, and now we've moved to the Guardian newspaper. We have the major headline here: tough times for students, parents as school hikes fees by 200%. All right. These are hard times for students and parents as they are now to pay more for their education following increase in fees by the nation's federal and state universities. Many institutions have increased their fees by 100% to 200%, which may force some indigent students out of school. Now, there are a list of schools here and how much they've increased, even student accommodation. Unilorin has been mentioned, Federal University of Technology Owerri has been mentioned, Bayero University in Kano, Niger Delta University, amongst others, and we're seeing increment as high as over 200%. And now they have blamed this increment on the poor funding of tertiary institution and also inflation that is now currently 22.4%, the highest that we have seen in 17 years, I believe. So Fuhad, that dedication of this administration to rectifying the education sector with a situation like this, how exactly do you think that rectification process is going to be like?
Well, there's a big question on this issue of increment of tuition. These schools that have done this increment, do they have the powers to unilaterally increase this fee?
Well,
or are they supposed to get directly from the federal government? That's the first question. The second question is that is there a silent directive already from the Ministry of Education to these schools to increase fees? If you understand what I'm saying, do we have that directive already silently being done that these schools should increase their tuition? Because I assume that these schools cannot on their own just increase tuition without directive from the government. So is the government already silently implementing the idea of increasing tuition fee? I question that when the issue of student loan was announced. But you know, people of supporters of the government who are so eager to just celebrate anything from this government were not allowing us to say what we were saying here. And so I ask again, is there a directive already from the government to these tertiary institutions owned by government to start to increase tuition? There are also questions that this again, unfortunately, during the campaign, we did not focus on the real issues. And I was asking, on the how. You know, I was asking, you know, when you talk about funding for the tertiary institutions, the question is that is the government committed to increasing the funding for the schools, or the government thinks that proper funding for tertiary institutions should come as a result of financial autonomy for the school? If you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
Look, there have been questions about budgetary provision for funding education in Nigeria. I think the argument has been that look, for us to properly fund our schools, our budget should be around 15% to education. I think we have been doing about 3-5%. And so the question would have been to big government all during the campaign that look, when it comes to proper funding for our schools and tertiary institutions, are you looking at increasing budgetary provisions for them to only take care of our schools, or you are looking at granting them financial autonomy? So what it means is that the schools
internally generated revenue,
and that automatically means that they have to look at tuition fees, hostel fees, and all of that. So is that what the government is already implementing? We don't know. But again, another reality of Nigerians that I think we have to thank the editors of Guardian for doing a fantastic job.
Right. Although some universities like the Federal University of Duse have said that you can make your payments in installments, 2 installments, and they will give a discount to children of staff members. They'll give a discount to children of staff members.
So those of us, how many children of staff members?
Anyways, it's on page 6 of the Guardian Newspaper.
My parent must be a staff member of university to go to school.
Fuhad, they have started stealing bridge fittings from the second Niger bridge.
I hope you will not steal that bridge eventually.
But I don't understand, because we still spoke about the Murtala Mohammed International Airport and the airport lighting was stolen after not being there for over 15 years. It was finally fixed and then it was stolen. The second Niger bridge that was briefly opened, I think, during the holidays and was closed to complete reconstruction, they started stealing the bridge fittings, and I really don't know what we're going to do about this vandalism and this theft that continues to happen, really. But page 8 of the Guardian newspaper is where you find this information. We have less than a minute, so I'm just going to run through the other headlines that we have here. Maybe when we come back, we can look at a few other headlines before we open the phone lines. Now, amid $1 billion legacy debt, Nigeria pushes for $12 billion revenue, 10 gas FDIs. Okay, very optimistic. Ladoja takes Makinde Olubadan, 10 others to court over Ibadan chieftaincy law review. Okay, that's pretty much everything from The Guardian. The Nation newspaper, we see here, Tinubu remedy for subsidy withdrawal, hardship soon. President asks lawmakers to approve 500 billion naira palliatives cash. We've reviewed that. CBN directs payment of dollar receipts in naira. Vandals remove fittings on second Niger bridge. Nigeria fully redeems $500 million euro bond, and federal government states to partner on electricity. And finally, from Vanguard, we have here jihadists from Niger, Mali, Libya are taxing Nigerian farmers, says a rep. Subsidy removal, palliatives to relieve Nigerians on the way. Sit at home, Southeast governors vow to deal with Simon Epa, others. And that's pretty much everything we can take for trends in the papers. 8:40, we will be right back for Mainland Focus. It's Open Mic Thursday, which means that you can bring back any conversation you would like or react to the stories that we have analyzed this morning. Thank you, Fuhad, for your analysis. Please don't go anywhere. We'll be back by 8:40, like I said before, for Mainland